meeting, please do the following. Zoom attendees will be, please get on the meeting. Webinar ID is 871-8492-4276 and password 511830. Zoom attendees will be muted until they are called on for public comment. To make a public comment, please raise your hand icon on your smart device or desktop computer, or dial 9 if you're using just your telephone. Please listen carefully for the chair or city clerk to address you by name or phone number, and for audible Zoom notification, you have been unmuted. Once you begin your public comment, you have 3 minutes to begin. So, thank you. Can I have a roll call, please? Oh, yeah. Let's do Pledge Allegiance. First, if you could please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Yes. Alternate Commissioner Cox.
Present.
Vice Chair Essie.
Present.
Commissioner Hoverts.
Present.
Commissioner Sanders.
Present.
Commissioner Wakey.
Present.
And Chair Shanahan.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda review, do we have any changes or deletions?
No changes.
Okay, thank you. Declaration conflicts of interest, do we have any on the commission? Seeing none. Open up for public comment. Under this item, citizens may speak on matters within the Planning Commission's jurisdiction, which are not on the agenda. The Planning Commission is prohibited under public meeting law from taking actions on matters that are not on the agenda. However, the Commission may take citizens' input under advisement, direct staff to place the matter for future agenda or discussion and or possible action, or refer matters to staff for follow-up. Public comments may be made in person or through Zoom. Email comments will become part of the record viewable online at City Clerk's office. Do we have any public comment? Please state your name, and there's a pad there. You can sign your name there as well. Nothing there. Okay.
We can see your face. Okay, hopefully that.
There's nothing to sign. Am I supposed to sign something?
No, just state your name.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Rachel Allred, and I live at 109 Roan Court here in Cloverdale. I'm here to urge you to please decline the request for a zoning change for 669 and 679 South Cloverdale Boulevard. This proposed.
Excuse me, that's for tonight's meeting.
Oh, I thought that was now. Okay.
Sorry, yeah, this is for non on the agenda items. Okay, so you'll have your chance. Okay.
And no hands are raised on Zoom.
No hands, okay. So we'll close public comment and start with our meeting. Consent calendar, we have minutes review. Everybody get a chance to read the minutes? Looking like good. Could I have a motion for approval of the minutes, please?
I have a couple of changes we need.
Could I have a second for approval?
Chair Shanahan?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a couple for review. On page, we mentioned the additional examination needed to be conducted, including the CEQA, to fulfill additional requests of the school district. And there needs to be a little bit more emphasis on the fact that the developer was willing to assist with the development of a park or other type of facilities with the district on their land, but there needs to be those concessions made for CEQA and that before the project gets too far along. So I think it's a little, it doesn't explain as well as it should the fact that the developer was willing to do the work for those parks and those other opportunities if the school district does their due diligence of doing the CEQA and other preparatory work before this project gets too far along in that, where they can't assist. The second item is, let me go to that. Second item is down under the new conditions. We had add solar on the community buildings. And I specifically asked that they add infrastructure to allow storage. So it's not just solar, but I need solar plus storage infrastructure so that they can tie in battery storage or other resiliency measures that we can use in case of a PSPS or power outage. With those two recommendations, I'm comfortable with the minutes.
Okay, rest of the commission okay with those changes to the minutes?
Yes.
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 Okay, so with the changes in minutes, could we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes with the addition of the previous comments, previous condition clarifications.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a second, please?
I second that.
Okay, can I roll call, please?
Vice Chair Acey,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoverts,
Aye.
Commissioner Weggie, sorry, just on mute.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanders
Aye.
and Chair Shanahan.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So we'll go on to our first item, which is public hearing, proposal design review, general plan, land use map amendment to zoning map amendment application to construct 21 multifamily residential units at 669, 679 South Cloverdale Boulevard.
Okay, Chair, Commission members, this is a proposed design review, general plan amendment, and zoning map amendment. Just want to point out we have received correspondence from Tammy D'Angelo, Sandy Richards, Rachel Allred, Jennifer Hutchinson, and Greg and Julie Carter. We do have a PowerPoint. Rafael's been the lead on this, and I know he's on the line, so we're going to have him walk us through the PowerPoint. We're going to do it similar to Baumgartner. It's not quite as big of a project, but we have some talking points and discussion items for the commission to consider. And we'll take a look at some pictures and talk about the project. And Rafael, you want to take it away? You might be on
All right,
mute.
thanks, Kevin.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
No.
Hello?
I can
Can you hear me?
Hold on one sec. There you go.
Can you hear me? Hello? You guys hear me?
I can hear you, Raphael.
Okay,
Hear you.
Can
sorry
everyone
about
hear?
that.
That's it, man.
Okay, so thanks for the introductions. Item before the Planning Commission is a request for a general plan amendment, zoning amendment, design review, and approval of the project, which would construct 22 multifamily units on the property. Excuse me, 21 multifamily units on the property. The project site is currently zoned R1. The project site consists of 4 parcels, which total 1.41 acres. And the request is to...
Hold on, Rafael, do you want the next slide?
Sure.
Yeah, let's go to the, yeah. Let us know when you want to change the slide.
Okay. Are you guys seeing the next slide up yet? I just still see the agenda.
Can you see the screen?
I see the agenda.
There we go.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, you can go to the next one, please. So yes, the site, as I was saying, is 1.41 acres, and the request is to combine the 4 properties into one and develop the 21 apartment units on the property with off-street parking. So some items for discussion that the commission can review tonight through the design review is the general site layout, the landscape plan, and elevations of the project, which we will be seeing some slides of later. Next slide, please. So this is the project site, just north of 2 other projects that, well, one just finished up, I think, recently, and one more that the actual applicant and property owner of this is constructing at 701 South Cloverdale. This would be the Taylor Lynn 2, phase 2 of the Taylor Lynn apartments. Phase 1 is 2 properties over, like I mentioned. In between them is the 699 project that was constructed by the Skellenders. Essentially, this project is kind of a mirror image of those, more so, I guess, the Skellenders next door, because this one will have a single-family house at the front, which would be a manager's unit, and the apartments in the back in 3 separate buildings. So I was saying the existing site right now is zoned R1, and the request is to change it to R3, which is multifamily. You can go to the next slide, please. So here's the general site layout, so showing the apartment or the building in the front, which would be the manager's unit, and then 4 separate buildings, excuse me, to house the rest of the apartment units. And the parking lot was purposely laid out on the north side of this parcel so that the neighbors on properties to the north wouldn't have a building right up against their property. It'll be landscaping. The site has the developers have tried to work with the site as much as they can to keep the existing trees. This doesn't show it, but the back side of that project site there will be a dog run, and the trees there will be preserved into that dog run area. And the total parking was 66 spaces for the 22 units. And they've got all of those, which would be arranged in off-street parking uncovered, which kind of you see there on the north side, and then garages below the apartments. Next slide, please. So on this landscape plan, you can kind of see at the back, I know it's a little hard, but those kind of big circles on the left side are those trees that are existing and being preserved. And there's some more that are existing and being preserved throughout this landscape plan. A couple more towards the front, and one that's close to the property line. I think that says a 15-inch oak that's being preserved as well. Next slide, please. So this is some of the apartment elevations at the bottom, and then at the top would be the building 1, which would be the manager's unit. The project would meet the city's development standards as far as public open space and private open space for the residents. Some of here you can kind of see the patios for some of the balconies for the second floor units. The ground floor units would kind of like their other project at 701, just a couple parcels down, would have their own yards accessible from the ground floor area. And then you can see the garages there as well. Next slide, please. Kind of, again, more of the same, just the north elevation. Next slide, please. Yeah, it's just the other elevation. You can go to the next one. Yes, and the applicant may change just slightly the color tones. He's maybe wasn't 100%. I just got to say, Mr. Letson seems to produce some very thoughtful, or puts a lot of thought into his projects and care and about the design and the layout. And so he seems like he just doesn't want to quite pick the one until he finds it just perfect and what will be most appealing and right for the site. So this is a general idea of what it would look like, but essentially the colors appear like this, maybe just some slight adjustments. But this would be looking from the north side of the property, I guess more towards like Roan Court. So the buildings would be away from their side of the property, and they'd have some greenery and just parking in between them and the buildings. Next slide, please. So what the Planning Commission is asking, or what staff is asking of the Planning Commission to do tonight would be adopt the resolution approving the mitigated negative declaration initial study. Because this project has a general plan amendment and zoning amendment, it automatically requires that we do initial study, which was done and circulated through the public comment period. The city did not receive any comments on the initial study and negative declaration. And the second resolution that the city would request that the Planning Commission adopt would be a resolution recommending approval to the City Council. Sorry, the first one would be a recommendation to City Council also to adopt the initial study. As the City Council is, the City Council is the one that has the ultimate authority on approving a general plan amendment and zoning amendment. So these are recommendations by the Planning Commission to move the project forward to that level. What I was just to circle back about the zoning and the parking setbacks, the property, the site plan meets all the development standards that the city requires. This project would also be subject to affordable housing. The city requires 15% of the units in a project that's more than 5 units, that 15% of those units be affordable. That's one of the conditions of approval that's in there. And just kind of in general, in a ballpark kind of sense, city is excited about this project, I guess you could say. We've been talking a lot about housing lately, and ADUs, accessory dwelling units, granny units has kind of been the topic a lot. And the state's set a lot of new laws lately, and I think we're all kind of familiar with that, at least the Planning Commission is. That's why we had to amend our ADU ordinance earlier this year to be current with the laws. So one thing about the housing that's coming up, which we haven't really discussed, is when the city is going to need to get our housing element certified in a couple of years. The state's really taking a hard stance on that coming up. And just in a nutshell, you need to have your housing element certified so that you can not get sued by the state and you can qualify for lots of funding and things like that. So it's something that's critical the city needs to do. They usually run in like 5 to 7 year cycles. Ours is going to be up in 2022. And when we go to certify that or get our new housing element certified, part of that process will be what's called the RHNA numbers, RHNA. They're the Regional Housing Needs Allocations. And some of you might be familiar with those. The state kind of comes down to different districts and tells them kind of how many housing units they need to build. And lots of cities didn't build all those in the past. The state was kind of, I guess, so as a matter of just speaking, kind of easy on it, but the state's going to be a lot harder now. And essentially, they're going to ask about this is just kind of a general thing from the conference, that across the state, our numbers are going to go up by about 300%. And the sites that we were allowed to use last time, as far as, how are we going to meet those numbers and where are we going to build those sites? They're not going to, a lot of those sites that we used last time are not going to be able to be used by the city for a lot of reasons that are kind of hard to get into. But the state really wants the cities to be serious about building more housing. And essentially this is kind of a project that, one reason why the city is excited. in the future, these kind of projects, we might be seeing a lot of them. And it might be the city actually coming to the council and commission to ask for rezoning, not the property owners, because the city will need to get our housing element certified. And part of that will be, we need to show that we can build more units. And if a lot of sites are zoned R1, the state would like to see us upzone those. And so this is kind of an example of what we might be seeing in the future. So I'll stop mumbling there. I hope that didn't confuse too many people, but just wanted to kind of brush over that at a broad picture. But one reason why the city is excited about this project, it's kind of doing what we're going to need to be doing in the future pretty soon. And like I said before, the site layout will be preserving a lot of the trees that are there now, and the applicant is more than willing to bring in more trees and work with the city to screen the project from neighbors if they feel that it's going to be an eyesore with trees or taller fences and what have you. So with that, I'll say that the staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopts the two resolutions attached to the staff report, one recommending approval of the initial study and mitigated negative declaration to the City Council, and one recommending approval of the design review, general plan, land use map amendment, and zoning map amendment. The staff is here to take any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for the commission, technical, on the report?
I have a question.
Yes, technical questions on the report.
Well, it's a technical question on the report. Well, it's probably not having to do with that. It's more about this RENA and what that whole picture looks like.
Okay. Okay. Do we have the applicant here tonight? Do we have the applicant here?
Yes, I was going to say.
Okay.
Just Commissioner Randy, we can discuss what the RENA is and what that all means. Maybe we can adjust that as kind of a educational item, the housing element and how that works. Because in 2 years, as Rafael said, they are changing the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say Scott Edinger is here representing the developer, and he's available if we have any technical questions about the project. So thanks for coming, Scott. And
Bill, if we agendize this for an additional meeting, would that be good? Okay for you?
Commissioner,
Yes.
we can discuss what the RENA is
Okay.
and what that all. Maybe we can agendize that as kind of a educational item, the housing element, how that works, because it is coming in 2 years. And as Rafael said,
Kevin, can you speak up a little bit? I can't hear you.
So that wasn't me. I don't know who was talking right there.
There seems to be a 30-second delay.
Okay.
Just to recap, if everyone can hear me, we're going to agendize an item related to the housing element, which is something that the city has to conduct every 7 years, and it's coming up in 2022. And there's a whole process around that, and it's not really on the agenda tonight, but maybe under future agenda items, Chair, you can mention that, and we'll get something together.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no questions on from the report. I'd like to open it up to public comment. If anybody would like to come down and make public comment on this item. And please state your name and if you live in Cloverdale.
The public comment is on mute.
I'm just gonna hold it.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Rachel Allred. I live at 109 Roan Court here in Cloverdale. I'm here to urge you to please decline the request for a zoning change for 669 and 679 South Cloverdale Boulevard. This proposed land change is on our home's south fence line. My reasons are as follows. In your resolution number 006-2020, section 18.03.150, number 2, it says that this project won't be detrimental to the health, safety, comfort, and general welfare of persons residing or working in the neighborhood. As a resident on the north side of the project, I can say it will and has been detrimental to us for the last 3 years when the developers started work building at 699 South Cloverdale Boulevard. We have already lost privacy to our home and yard. If the zoning change is approved, we will even lose more privacy. We have dealt with noise from construction from the already built structures, as well as construction noise starting early in the morning, sometimes before 7 a.m. as trucks arrive. We have had dust in our home as the land at 679 South was being graded and not watered down, which the developer did without a permit for many days, even after we complained to the city. The dust will continue. From the previous said grading, there is now a high dirt berm on 679 South Cloverdale Boulevard that's higher than some of our back fences. This is a concern. If rezoned, will the new buildings be built higher as the other ones were? Some of our neighbors have already had rain runoff and flooding come from the property. Also, many trees have already been cut down on the 679 parcel and have not been replaced, which makes the noise from the boulevard very noticeable. If rezoned, there's even going to be more traffic. Also, the proposal of this plan, as in section 18.03.150, number 3, is not consistent with the general plan. The developer bought the two properties knowing that they were zoned R1. From the north and west sides of the property, it is all R1 single-family residential. We encourage you to keep 669 and 679 South Cloverdale Boulevard that way too, and not rezone it. If you approve this request and rezone the property, the single-family residences on the north and west side of said property will have their property values go down. These residences each chose to live in a single-family R1 residential area for a reason. As for my family, we have lived across the fence to 679 South Cloverdale Boulevard for 35 years. We bought the property to build on a nice, quiet, family-friendly court with a beautiful vineyard behind us to the south. We knew that the properties behind us, because we're at the corner of the court, were zoned R1 for single-family residents. This was and still is important to us. My husband and I love this city. We had our occupations in this city. We have volunteered to give services in many different capacities. We do not see how a developer can make such a big impact on our life, who doesn't even live here. We request to each one of you to please deny the request for rezoning. It's not in the best interest for the city of Cloverdale or for its citizens. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comment from the public?
Can you see them okay? Can you see them when I? Yeah. Okay, because I can't see mine, so. No, it's fine. Yeah, as long as you can see them. Okay, perfect.
Okay. I'm Sandy Richards. I live at 120 North Washington Street here in town. I bought my home in 1978, and I'm urging you to consider declining the application for rezoning. I've sent a letter. I don't know if you guys read it. Okay. I'm going to reiterate that. Excuse me just a second. Basically, my daughter lives at 120. My daughter lives on Hillside, intersection of Hillview and Cloverdale Boulevard. Thank you. Is already a snarly mess. You have traffic trying to merge out there, traffic trying to merge in, people going out of the gas station, people going in the gas station. If you've ever had children go to the Boys and Girls Club trying to get out, is a terrible mess because you've got all this traffic. You're at the top of the hill. Right now, we already have problems with on-street parking from the units that are already south there. There's just not, if you have multiple families moving into these, the occupancy right now isn't full. When it becomes full, with those occupancies will become multiple cars. And I see that they're going to have 66 parking spaces for the 21 units. But if that's used up by the residents, where are visitors going to park? And hold on just a second here. My other concern is there's a fire truck's ability to pull fire trucks in there with that occupancy full and the 66 car spaces filled. Where will those fire trucks be able to move and maneuver to put out a fire should one occur? There just isn't enough room. Right now, I think that the population density for the area is already too high. I don't think we should fill it up with any more. The applicant is requesting a change to the Cloverdale's general plan land use designation, and I don't think we should. I think it was planned that way for a reason, and it has a horrible impact for the people who are surrounding behind there. They've lost their privacy. If this goes through, I would recommend that they not have those big high apartments at the back of the property that just view into these people. Change it around, put the big ones up front. If you have to have this approved, I hope you don't approve it, but I've been to too many meetings already. If rezoning to the high density residential area, the citizens in the surrounding areas will not be able to live their life the way they have been. And everybody has to change, I understand that. But when it becomes negatively impacted, I think we need to consider that. I understand we need housing. I think that's important, but we also need to take into consideration the people who have lived there for many years and what they're losing at the expense of some housing unit. And that's all.
Thank you.
Yes. Are you comfortable sitting? Yeah.
Thank you. And just please state your name and address, please.
My name is Jennifer Hutchison. I live at 107 Roan Court, and I also sent a letter. I don't know if that has been received. So I will just paraphrase what I wrote before and some concerns I have with the rezoning. During the last construction, there was many problems. First of all, the workers were there before 8 o'clock, and according to what I've seen, that is when construction is supposed to start. They were there much earlier, 6:30 or 7. But one of the biggest things was the dust control. There was not any sort of plan that they had to mitigate what was going on out there. We had several things ruined in our backyard. On days we couldn't even let our son go out and swim in the pool because the air was just so bad. There was just dust covering it. It was not comfortable and could potentially be a medical hazard too. The weekend work was just too much. I don't understand why they have to have people there on a Saturday. I know they're allowed to by city ordinance, but and then the dirt berm behind us right now, when it's not mowed, it is a potential fire hazard, and that is a big problem for me, especially in this very hot weather. And the last thing is, during the last phase, after things were starting to calm down, I don't know what they had for security, but there were many drifters wandering around, drinking, doing drugs in the open fields, trying to get on the equipment there. It was a safety hazard, and there was concern for my kids. So I did not like that, which is a big reason why we would like to deny this request for the rezoning. Second, and the last thing is before construction starts again, I would like to see that a dust mitigation plan in place of what they're going to do from the very beginning, just not at the end. I would also like to see a privacy fence built between our properties and where the construction is going on, to give us just that little bit of privacy that we deserve, having to put up with everything else that's going on behind us. That's all.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Bill McClymans. I live at 704 South Foothill Boulevard. I'm on the western edge of the development. I object to the change in changing the designation of the property to multiple residences. I have a friend who lives at Iola Ranch, 210 Iola Ranch. His property backs the back of the latest development there. I went to his house the other day, and the two-story building looks directly into his bedrooms, his kitchen, and his back patio. All that is a loss of privacy and a loss of property value. We've suffered noise for 2 years. Noise from the bulldozers, from the beep, beep, beep backing up, noise from the music for the workers, dust, and rats. Our garage was invaded by rats while they were knocking down the houses that are on the property that we're discussing right now. Okay. I moved to Cloverdale at that house so that we were close to our in-laws who've since passed away. I spent 6 years driving from Cloverdale to Pacifica and back, 95 miles one way, twice a day, 5 days a week for 6 years, so that I could retire there in Cloverdale and enjoy the peace and quiet of a backyard, trees, and the view of the sky. A two-story building behind my house will not only invade my privacy, it will also invade my peace and quiet. It will be a loss of peace and quiet, of sun, view, and ability to grow trees and vegetables in our own backyard. I noticed that the design for this property has 2 dog runs at the back of the property, which would just be over the fence of my house. I have 2 dogs. That could get quite annoying and quite loud, depending on how they kept up that property, that dog run, cleaning it up, spraying for fleas, etc. I would like to also say that I would like to have had a little bit more than a 10-day notice for this meeting. I'd like to have more than 72 hours to see a model or the plans. I went several days this week to City Hall. You can't get in there. There's no ability to see the plans in there or see a model of the property. I think we need a traffic study to see about the impact it will have on Cloverdale Boulevard. That's a major intersection there with a stoplight. I think it'll be very dangerous for some of those people walking across the street or trying to get in and out of the driveways. In a half-block area, there are 3 major driveways. And if you plan 66 or so parking places for that many cars on this one, let's multiply that by 3 times for all 3 apartment buildings. You have a lot of cars going in and out, all at the same stop sign, all at the same stoplight. I do not think we need any more apartments in that area. It is rated for single-family homes. It should be kept that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julie Carter. I live at 103 Roan Court. I've been in Cloverdale for 22 years, and I happen to be the current president of the Kiwanis Club of Cloverdale. My husband will cover everything we think when he speaks, except for one thing, my view from my backyard. My view from my backyard since the apartments have gone up is a party every Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah.
It is loud. And this is a party during COVID, okay? The apartments opened for people to move in a year ago, March. They were at less than 60%, I think. I checked it, but my numbers may be a little wrong. March this year. Now, the apartments took a year to get over 50%. Do we really need 63 apartments when they can't even rent out the 21 that are eligible right now? Have you noticed that they had to cut the rents? And every week there's a party. And I try to remember what I was like when I was 20, and so I don't call the cops. But I think I'm going to start. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay.
I think I hear my name just barely. I'm here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Shall I go ahead?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Greg Carter, and my wife Julie and I own a home at 103 Roan Court. The proposal before you tonight should be defeated for a multitude of reasons. The Boulevard Apartments and Taylor Lynn Phase 1 projects have already significantly diminished our property values and quality of life. We've suffered through over 2 years of illegal grading, construction dust and noise, vermin invasion, and flooding as they were being built. The developer raised the grade of the land so that these two-story buildings tower over us, destroying the privacy we previously enjoyed in our backyards and homes. Light and noise pollution, including late-night parties, regularly disturb our formerly tranquil neighborhood. Our only consolation has been that the buffer between this high-density development and our single-family homes is zoned single-family residential. Now this developer is asking you to change the historic use and zoning of this property and to build yet another set of apartment buildings even closer to our homes. These looming behemoths, clocking in at 27 feet 4 inches in height, would put the final nail in the coffin of our home values in terms of both quality of life and financial value. What is being proposed is effectively a transfer of wealth from Cloverdale citizens and homeowners to an out-of-town developer. If you approve this development, you will be colluding in the destruction of our way of life and our property values for the benefit of a developer whose only interest is in extracting a profit from our community. Besides the developer, who would benefit from this development? Are there people working in Cloverdale who are currently unable to find a place to live? Or would these apartments be filled with people who work, shop, and play elsewhere in Sonoma County, turning Cloverdale into even more of a bedroom community? If this is the case, by what logic does the city of Cloverdale prioritize the needs and desires of non-residents over homeowners who already live here? The Cloverdale General Plan calls for a, quote, jobs housing balance defined as a 1-to-1 jobs to housing ratio, unquote. Several developments built over the past few years have added at least 85 housing units in our city. Baumgardner Ranch proposes an additional 304 units. Please show me the 389 plus new jobs that have been added in Cloverdale. The general plan in goal LU4 calls for the city to, quote, maintain the built environment to support the quality of life and the friendly, rural, small town atmosphere. Erecting two-story apartment buildings just over the back fence of a neighborhood that has existed for 30 years goes directly against this policy. We bought our home on Roan Court because we wanted to live in a single-family home in a neighborhood of similar residences. If we had wanted to live in an apartment complex, we would have moved into one. This development would effectively force us to become residents of an apartment complex. planning commissioners, fellow Cloverdalians, how would you feel if someone demolished the single-family home on the property behind yours and tried to build a towering high-density apartment complex just over your back fence? Please stop this unjust destruction of our quality of life and property values. I urge you to vote no on the proposal before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comment on Zoom?
No additional public.
Okay, thank you. Any additional public comment from the public here? Okay, not seeing any. Okay, we'll close the public comment and bring it back to the commission.
I would like to.
And at this point, I'd like to bring the developer up, please.
My name is Scott Edinger. I am Steve Ledson's controller of 40 years. And first of all, I want to thank you all honestly for coming and voicing your concerns, and I appreciate it. I only respect that you care about the community that you live in. And I'm not just saying that because I'm trying to sell you something. I'm saying that because I mean it. I want you all to know that I have worked for Mr. Ledson for 40 years, and there's a reason behind that. The company and his family care about what goes on around us. We care about the communities that we work in, those communities where we build. We try to do quality projects. We did not construct 699 South Cloverdale Boulevard. We do know the Skellingers. It was actually brought to our attention after they were moving dirt onto both of our properties that it was taking place. I can't control their dust control and so forth. I know that I did have some people out doing some mowing and so forth, and I do apologize for that. Yeah, I think we communicated about that, and I'm sorry. But we're trying to do some quality projects, and we're trying to work with the city of Cloverdale. We first purchased the back 3 parcels, and we were very challenged by the front parcel, which I think we can all agree was a nightmare for the city and everybody in the neighborhood and everybody around it. We actually hired a private detective to find the chain of title to find out that the actual person that owned it had passed away several years ago. We flew to Washington and found the next of kin, paid way more than we should have for that land just so we could get rid of it for everybody involved. We were concerned because we own the property at 701, and it's just an eyesore, and it's something that we didn't want there. We had just acquired title to that property, and the people that were staying there decided to let it on fire before we got a chance to bulldoze it. I was planning on demoing it the following day. So, but we do understand your concerns. I know that you all have had a lot of comments. They're all very good comments. And I can't speak to what is going on the balconies of the Skellinger property at 699 South Cloverdale Boulevard. But I can tell you that we've intentionally designed our project so that the backyards of those properties will no longer be visible from anyone's properties to the north, because our property sits up against their property. Our building will sit up against their buildings. So you would only see the front elevations of our project, which if you look at the 2 projects, not that the Skellingers don't do a nice project, we try to really implement a lot of design characteristics and so forth. As to discussions about the grades, drainage, flooding, those type of things, we've already met with our civil engineers, obviously, and with our landscape architect. Those grades are not the final grades. That is not the height that we're going to be building off of. Clearly, there's excess dirt in there. After the Skellingers moved that dirt onto the site, we said just leave it for now. When we design the project, we have to address drainage out the back of Roan Court and so forth, and out to the street. We will address those items at that time. After what we just did at 701, we actually built the properties and the buildings first and then the fence. I've learned from doing that I will build the fence first because it's just much easier than packing the material into the backyards. At 701, I personally met with all 14 of the neighbors that are on the ILE Ranch and on South Foothill. I knocked on their doors after sending them an email and putting a flyer in their door, communicated with them months in advance before we began the fence construction, went with them into their backyards, found out what their concerns were, and I'm still actually addressing some of those. We were allowed by the city, and we're going to be requesting that again, to build as tall a fence as we can. Initially, we were allowed for a 6-foot fence, but we were allowed a variance up to an 8-foot fence, which is very nicely constructed. We want to work with our neighbors. We are not here to come into town as out-of-town developers and take the money and run. My family is homesteaded up in Hillsburg. Mr. Ledson's family is from County of Sonoma. We've both been here our whole lives. We're not like that. I understand that growth has to take place. We're trying to do the best project we can. I'm right in the process right now of bringing in I've already brought some in, and you'll see some more over the next couple of weeks, 20 and 25 foot tall trees, not some 15-gallon tree that in 10 years will be that height, but it's that height now. We don't have a problem with that. And we want to talk with people, and we want to work with them, and we want to communicate with you about what your needs are and what our needs are and how we can implement and work together. I've taken concise notes about the pets and so forth. We will address those. I read some, I can't remember which email it was, but someone expressed some concerns about the financial stability of our company and the way things are going right now in the world, and whether or not we're going to get partway into a project and stop. That will not be the case. Mr. Ledson doesn't ever borrow any money. He builds these projects out of pocket. There's no issue with that. We build the project through to the end. Granted, we've all had fires, more fires, power safety shutoffs. Finishing the project at 701, trying to get materials during this pandemic has been challenging, but we're there. As far as your security issues, we have on-site management at 701. We'll have an on-site caretaker at this project. My phone is on 24/7. Like I say, I've been the showman's controller and run all of his 8 companies for 40 years, and there's a reason behind that, and I have no problem answering the phone at any time and addressing any concerns. A couple of comments I'd like to just make. The Skellinger project at 699, when it was completed, I'm not quite sure what their marketing tactics were or were not, but you are correct that it was a long time that the occupancy was very, very low. We were questioning it, and we were wondering what was going on, actually inquiring as applicants ourselves just to see what was going on. And then they changed their marketing program, and the project has been full and is full. Our project, we have barely even scratched the surface of marketing, and we already have 5 of the units rented and about 15 other people inquiring this week. And many of those are actually from Cloverdale, people that are living here in town, some actually from the project next door. You know, people that live and work here. There have been some people from out of town, but fortunately there's a need for residential housing, and we're trying to fill that gap and do the best we can with it. As far as parking, I am not certain of the concerns about parking. I think we're required to have something like 2.5 spaces per unit. In both the 701 and in this project, everybody has their own garage plus the 56 spaces. So there's more like 78 or 80 spaces total at our 2 projects. And I think the Skellinger's requirement is basically the same. We look forward to working with everyone here and some of those who are not here and the city, and trying to do the best project we can and get through it as quickly as possible. I have no problem making sure and adhering and monitoring to noise ordinances, construction activity ordinances, following those. If you want to see a dust mitigation plan in advance, that's not a big deal to do. We own our own water trucks. We have our own water buffaloes and so forth. And we would look forward to working with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does the commissioner have any questions of the applicant at this point?
I do. I do.
Was that Bill?
Yes.
Okay, please.
I'm wondering if the height of the buildings in the rear of the project is a problem to the neighbors, if you couldn't move the manager's single-family house to the rear and kind of shift the whole development forward towards South Cloverdale Boulevard.
Hey, thank you. Do you could respond to that, please? Yeah.
That would be kind of difficult.
You have
for me
to come up here, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
It would be difficult for me to answer that question without speaking with Mr. Ledson. I know that historically the intent is to put the manager in the front of the project so that she can monitor the activities at the project. We have the manager over at 701 right in the first unit where we're coming in, where people are going to pick up their mail and so forth. That was originally designed as a house. We felt like the streetscape, you know, we would replace the house that was there with a nice house and so forth, and it would look very similar to the project next door. So it would be difficult for me to speak to that. We will be doing some slight elevation changes just to address things, but we can certainly look at that. Look at where windows are placed and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Waggy, is
You might want to stay there.
concern based on, you know, the other properties looking in where we could screen it off with trees or something, a little more mitigation?
So it seems that if there's an issue with noise and with sight lines into the backyards of the people on Foothill and Rowan Court, that if you had a lower building in the back, it would be less intrusive as far as they're concerned, privacy wise, because they don't have a second level. So that was just my thought, that it might somewhat mitigate some of their concerns, not all of them certainly, but some of them.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant from the commission, please?
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
What type of priorities are we putting towards local renters first in this? I know that they had a tough time renting in the previous project, but in this project, are we focusing on a lower income? Are we focusing on local employees first? What's the developer's rationale behind that?
Chair, if I could add something to that.
Please.
It's kind of a tricky question because there are fair housing laws, which we've run up against with affordable housing projects that really make it difficult for an owner of an apartment to give preference to local applicants. Scott, I don't know if you know much about that, but I just know from doing a bunch of affordable housing projects and having that request come in, that has been an answer that we have checked with our attorneys, and it's just real difficult to say these units are reserved for Cloverdale residents only, given fair housing.
Got another question?
Go ahead, please.
I think I read in there that no new stop signs or traffic lights were anticipated on South Cloverdale Boulevard. And I believe that, I think it's Hillview and South Cloverdale. One of the commenters mentioned that intersection. And being a customer frequently of Ace Hardware, I can verify that intersection is a mess. And I think there should be some kind of traffic stoplights or something like that, maybe a three-way stop for or stop both directions on South Cloverdale Boulevard in addition to the stop sign on Hillview. And now if you're going to add additional people into that area, I don't know, I think it's going to be adversely impacted.
Thank you. We didn't have to do a traffic study on this one.
We did a traffic memo that was completed by W-Trans that did not recommend, but we can, I mean, a stop sign isn't that big of a deal. Typically, the Public Works Director will ask that that be warranted by a study, but the City Council does have the ability to override the need for that study. So that might be something we can work with Mr. Hudson and Mr. Edinger. Maybe we could do a little more analysis with W-Trans, or we can agendize that could be a potential condition of approval. The Planning Commission would like to recommend that, just like the Baumgartner project. I'm going to take notes on what the Planning Commission comments are and present those to the council, and we can have a further discussion. So maybe at the end we can summarize what the consensus is.
Okay, Commissioner Waggy, we'll just hold that off then for discussion if we decide to put that into as a condition of approval for a stop sign. Okay, if we have no other questions, I'd like to start up with a site layout. See if we have any discussion on that, if we're all good with the way it's laid out, if we have other recommendations.
Irene, do you mind going down a couple slides to the site plan? Yeah.
Do we have any comments on the site layout?
I have a comment on the site layout.
Go ahead, please.
I agree with Commissioner Waggy that that there's a potential to move the smaller size buildings. And Kevin and Mike, you're both mic'd, so one of you, not both of you. But I agree with Commissioner Waggy that moving the management building to the backside may not be a normal practice for these types of development because they want to monitor the traffic coming in and out of the development. But it is a small development. It's beneficial to the neighbors. And so we really need to rethink the potentials of moving the smaller size buildings towards the back end to not affect the the west side of the property. But that's my comment on the site plan.
I have a comment on the site plan as well. Actually, I have a couple of comments, if I may.
Yeah,
I agree with both Commissioners Waggy and Vice Chair Say on that, but also I think that we should probably consider reducing the number of units here if we're going to do this. Maybe actually eliminating building 5 altogether and creating some sort of other alternative space there, maybe an open space or additional parking or something else. Definitely not a dog run right on the edge of that adjacent property member's backyard. And I also think that we should take a hard look at the utilities that are in here. According to this site plan layout, I don't see that there's a backflow device at the street in the public right of way here. I don't see that there's a backflow device, a water meter. I don't see that the owner is going to be maintaining and responsible for the fire mains and the fire hydrants there, or that the sanitary sewer lines are their responsibility either. And I think that they definitely should be. So in my mind, the layout of this needs to be radically changed.
I would like to also put my input into this. I like the housing development, but just like Commissioner Sanders said, the layout has to change. There has to be communication with the neighbors, and maybe like what was said, remove one of the buildings so that there's more privacy. I think that we should revisit this project and get a little bit more of the community support, and then just get a new design so that we can see what it would look like with making those changes before we move forward.
Thank you.
I also agree.
Any other additional comments on site layout?
I do. And I also find the dog runs locations to be problematic with the neighbors. And I agree with Commissioner Sanders that I think this thing kind of needs some further thought and design.
Okay, thank you. Alternate Commissioner Cox, any comment?
Yes, thank you. Looking at that site plan, it looks like there is a barbecue area in the back corner there that I see as a design for disaster. Parties going on, and that would just fit right into the complaints for our neighbors in Roan Court and such. So I just see that as big time trouble.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comment? How are you on the management building?
I would like to see that in the back also. It makes just obvious sense.
Okay, thank you. So with the site layout basically wanting to be changed, should we continue with the rest of this, or?
I would suggest we go through all of them.
Okay.
I'll write them down, and at the end, we can go through and see if
Okay.
there's consensus. And then we can either one, ask Mr. Edinger to make some changes, bring it back to the planning commission, we'll do as fast as possible. I can find some money and get that before we send it to the council. Or if the commission is comfortable, I can take your.
Sorry, Kevin, could you speak up a little bit or move closer?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I was just suggesting that we should go through the discussion points, and then I'll write them all down, and at the end, we'll go through and see if there's consensus. And then we can either one, ask the applicant to come back to the planning commission and address some of these, or two, we can forward those comments onto the city council and see what if they support them. And there's two ways to go.
Okay, so any other discussion on site layout?
Are these our final comments?
I'll go through the comments at the end.
I'm just asking if these are our final comments. If not, I have a lengthy conversation.
I just wanted to comment that the site layout plan here are not the improvement plans for the project. That we will, like we are at 701 South Cloverdale, be installing all of the fire line, landscape line, domestic water lines, making sure that all fire paths of travel are conducive and approved by the fire department. Sewer, all of that is part of the infrastructure that goes in. You won't see any of that or the check valves or anything on these types of plans. Those are all the improvement plans, which show all the grades, asphalt, concrete, and so forth. So, but we are absolutely responsible for the installation of those and the payment of fees that is associated with it to the city.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion on site layout?
I don't have a site layout, but I just wanted to talk about if I could hear from the developer if they could share with us some of the energy efficient features or measures that the Taylor Lynn Phase 2 project would have. For example, will the project have standard LED light bulbs as opposed to the compact fluorescent lights? Energy efficient heating, ventilation, air conditionings, water heating technologies. So will it have that also? Will you be installing the low water usage features, shower heads and faucet aerators? And so I just wanted to see where he stood with that.
Yes, as a part of the project, we are required to comply with Cal Green measures that are identified by a specialist. Soldata is who we use. Pretty much everything you just mentioned, along with a whole lot of other things about permeable paving, bioretention, stormwater runoff, everything you mentioned about low flow. We actually monitor and control, and we put a private water metering in every one of our apartments so that we can actually see the usage by the tenant and make sure that there's not any indications of any kind of leaks and so forth. Everything you mentioned and a whole lot more goes into that. How we dispose of our debris, is it source separated and used for recycle? Are we using recycled products such as base rock and so forth when we construct? So yes, we're very familiar with that and make sure and comply with it. It's actually somewhat of a condition of the building permit final that we do that. So absolutely.
Also, can you talk about the gate that you had on the setup plans? I know that we're going to go ahead and revisit the layout, but you did have a gate at the EVA between building 4 and 5. Can you talk a little bit about that gate?
I did not understand her. Is she asking about the emergency vehicle access?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, there is an emergency vehicle access like there is between the property we're just finishing at 701 and 699 so that the fire trucks can use those in the event that they need to access all of the sites.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add that the project was routed to the fire district for comment and review.
Okay, any additional on site layout before we move on to landscape plan? Okay, seeing none, then we will move on to the landscape plan.
I realize it's difficult to see on the screen, but it's also included in the packet along with the plantings. And Scott indicated their willingness to plant larger trees than 5-gallon typical.
And
Do we
I'll
have
just,
any questions on the layout of the landscaping? The tree mitigation, any of that?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I was just going to add that the applicant is kind of similar to what they've been doing on the project at 701. I would imagine, just about guarantee that they're going to be adding more trees than what you see. They've already been requesting to increase the trees from the original landscaping plan that was approved at 701. So I would say this is a minimum at what you will find when the project would be completed if approved.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other points on the landscape?
I just wanted to ask a quick question about the potential dog runs and or this little barbecue area and any other spaces. Is there a plan for grass planting in here somewhere? Because I saw in the elevations that it showed at least what it looked like to be grass.
Rafael, do you know the answer to, is there any grass being planned?
No, not without just going through the plans a little more. Perhaps Scott might be able to chime in on that one if he's available.
Sorry, Scott. Let me just...
Well, it's okay, but I do want to make the comment that if there is any grass planned, that I encourage artificial turf in place of a natural grown grass in order for water conservation.
We have been using artificial turf, the very highest grade that we can find. There's about 70 types that are available. And you are absolutely correct that it works very well as a permeable storm collection, bioretention collection. It does not require water. It looks absolutely amazing. We're going to be installing it in the next few days over at 701. And we use that quite a bit. It's pet friendly. It really is great. No dirt and so forth being tracked around, reduces maintenance and so forth. What we try to do, what Mr. Letchen does as he designs a project and we add architectural elements to it, we hire color consultants to work on the paint to make sure that everything is conducive, that it has a good flow. And then we go through and select landscaping that implements into it and works really well. So there will be turf and mature planting and trees.
Thank you. Do you have any additional comments on the landscaping? Commissioner Easter?
Yeah, and the developer might want to remain seated. Quick question on screening. One, to the city staff, there's an ability to do an exemption of screening to bring it to 12 feet high of a fence to screen during the construction time, at least the temporary construction fencing. And two, what is the developer's process of not reoccurring the same problem of leaving a berm of sand and removal of dirt that has been excavated for elevation? So how are we mitigating that, the residual effect? Are we taking that off site? Are we trying to leave that on site like they made the mistake in the previous project?
So as I mentioned previously, when the Skellinger project at 699 identified that they had excess spoils, they just started kind of moving them to 701 into the subject property. And by the time we realized what was going on, we found out they were having some permitting issues and so forth and so on. It was kind of already too late. Their contractor had already kind of taken a foothold there. It's very clear to me, I'm not the civil engineer, but I can look at the site and I can see that there's obviously probably going to be excess spoils on the site. When that occurs, those will be hauled off-site. Obviously, when you also install infrastructure, trenches, storm, water, sewer, you have excess spoils as well. So we would be removing those off-site. All of this will be done in addressing the drainage as well, so that you have the proper sheet flow out and away from all of the surrounding properties as well as the subject property.
And are you correct? Are you currently the 701 property?
I'm sorry.
Can you repeat the question, Chad?
Are you currently the developer for the 701 property as well?
Yes, we own the 701 South Cloverdale property, yes.
Is there potential to remove those spoils as well? The berm that they left on that property on 701?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
He's asking if we can remove the leftover soil at 701.
If we removed the leftover soil?
Can you remove? Can you repeat the question? We didn't quite get that one.
Yeah, I asked if he has the opportunity to help assist the prior project that failed to remove the spoils. Can we remove the spoils on that property as well, or assist in removing that berm that appears to be a concern for the neighbors of fire or whatever sightliness that it's above the fence line? Is there a way to assist on that as well? Is he still the developer for that area?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question, but 701 is very near completion. It actually has a temporary certificate of occupancy. There were excess spoils that were hauled away during the grading process from 701. But if there are excess spoils, I presume there will be at the 79 site, yes, they will be hauled away.
Thank you. I was just confused if you had some coordination or some consolidation with that same site. It's an opportunity to assist mitigating their errors on that site.
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. Are you?
Yeah, we're having problems getting that.
I think the concerns from the residents were regarding the excess spoils that are on the site we're talking about right now.
Right.
And not the previous site, which again is just about done and they have a temporary occupancy. I think that's what you're getting at, but I'm not sure if I'm getting that wrong. Please let me know.
Yes, you're correct.
Yes, any excess spoils will be pulled off site.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any other comments on the landscaping? Okay, so that leaves us design review. Okay, do we have any comments on the design review? Alder Commissioner Cox, anything you would like to put into this?
Thank you, no.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Through the chair, if I could ask Scott a question in regards to the floor plans. Is there a way to maybe the windows that could be considered intrusive maybe to the neighbors, could the floor plan be designed in a way that minimizes, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if this works or not, but if the closets could be up front, so that there's not, I'm sure you know
satisfactory plan that works for everyone. My goal, I don't make the decisions for the company, maybe that's why I'm still here. but my goal here is to get any feedback and so forth, and if there are some concerns that need to be conditioned into approvals or discussed or presented and so forth, obviously I'll show those to Mr. Ledson and we'll go look at each of the properties and see where a tree needs to be planted or relocation of a barbecue pit or whatever. We don't want anyone to be displeased. We're not here to just dig our heels in and do that. That's not the way we operate. So we're, you know, the whole purpose here is for me to gather information, hopefully get the approval and be able to move forward with this as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions on the design? I just want to say, I think they look like good projects at very higher scale than what we saw previously. And I like the interior layouts, look nice. And not seeing any comments coming out from the commissioners. We like to do a little punch list of what we'd like to do on this one before we call for a vote.
I'd like to I'm not on mute. I'd like to summarize the suggestions and comments that I've heard from the Planning Commission, see if there's consensus to forward those on to the City Council.
Yeah, please.
If that's okay. Okay. So I heard many comments about moving the manager's unit to the rear of the property and any other smaller buildings to the rear.
Yes, yeah, because we could do a straw poll on what we need to change right now.
Do you want to just ask if we have consensus on each one, or? Okay. I heard a comment regarding a stop sign and the need to take a closer look at the traffic impacts And maybe we can have our traffic consultant take another look and suggest if there should be a stop sign there. If they don't support a stop sign there, as I mentioned before, the city council can make a finding to install a stop sign if there's not support through the traffic. So to summarize that one, we might ask the applicant to amend the traffic memo, or we'll work with W-Trans to express what was said tonight and see if there is support for a traffic stop sign. If not, then we'll present that. Either way, we'll present to the council as a possible, I forget exactly what they call it, override. It's not the right word, but they can require the stop sign. I did hear Commissioner Sanders discuss a reduction in the number of units, and I'd like to hear what the rest of the commission thinks about that. Moving the dog run from not having it right up against the fence and close to the neighbors. Same goes with the barbecue area. Think of a new place for that, and not have it so close to the neighbors. And if any grass is suggested, artificial turf would be required in lieu of grass. And if I miss any, please speak up. I think those are the ones I had.
Yeah, does that meet everybody's punch list of what we discussed?
Did you include to raise or have the city allow an allowance to raise the screening of the fencing along the construction site on both the north and the west side during the construction?
Definitely.
Yes.
You said 12, well, whatever. I'll work with the building official and see.
I tried to get a 12-footer.
Yeah, if you get up to 12 feet, you should reduce the dust impact onto the neighboring yards. Noise should be reduced.
Okay. And would we like to see a dust mitigation plan prior?
Yes.
Are we seeing that from everybody? Looks good?
Typically, we would ask for that prior to building permit issuance. I'm happy to ask the applicant to provide that. We did have some issues, I will acknowledge, during the construction of the other two projects, and I spoke to the building official today, and we're going to do our best to ensure that there's not a repeat this project moves forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think we're all in consensus about looking at the site layout again with moving the management house to the back, if possible. Yes, Commissioner Sanders?
Yeah, I don't mean to draw this out anymore, but I'd also like to see the traffic study that Mr. Thompson was referring to. You did say they did one, right, Kevin? Or somebody did?
I can answer that. Yes, there was a traffic impact letter performed or written by W-Trans that I can email to all the.
Is that for this project, or was it for one of the previous projects?
So it was still done by a traffic engineer, but it's it's not a full-blown traffic study. But we got. Oh wow, that's neat. Delay here. Commissioner Sanders, did you hear what he said, or?
No, I didn't. Can somebody repeat that for me, please?
Hey, Rafael, can you repeat that?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have a letter from W-Trans that was performed for in part of the initial study and negative declaration for the traffic part of that. I can forward that to all the commissioners, and it's included in the negative declaration, which is a pretty big document, but it is in the packet, but I will make that available to the commissioners.
Great. Thanks, Raphael.
Okay, thank you.
Is somebody talking?
Chair Shanahan, I think you're on mute.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks. We'll try that again. Okay, so we're looking at reducing the number of units, possible move of the dog run into barbecue units, moving the management house to the back of the property, and pretty much a site layout overhaul, and then bring it back to commission, if that's what I'm seeing. Are we in agreement on that, or?
Yeah,
I had a couple items.
The public a little bit more time to respond to this too. It seems like there was a lot of negative comments from the public.
Yeah, the 12-foot fence, we have a lot of things here we want to see. So, I would like to recommend that we bring this back to the applicant and see if some of these changes could be made. See if it pencils out for them to reduce any units. That's a big question. Moving that management house to the back of the property, that's a big issue. So, if you're all in agreement, or.
I have a question. Let's just say that we cannot move the manager's office to the back. Is there another option where maybe that back building could be a single-story building and make that modification on that end if we're not able to change or move the manager's residential building?
That's why I'd like to give it back to the applicant to see what they could come up with to meet some of these questions that we have.
I'd also have a recommendation for the staff and the staff to put in their follow-up report some ability to try to monitor the dust control, the noise and start time of construction to make sure we do a better job as a city to make sure that the neighbors aren't as affected by the construction work.
Yeah, in the current conditions of approval, there are construction times, but there was a couple exceptions made for pouring of concrete, and I think it was the Scalinger project, but we certainly will look at that.
Would we just straw poll this now, or vote, or just do a request?
I'd like to
Ask if the applicant, if that would be acceptable.
a couple of questions. How long do you think it would take you to?
You're on mute.
How long do you think it would take to? I know we're trying to be as fast as possible. You've been in the process a long time, and I appreciate the time and money, and appreciate all you're working with us so closely. So why don't we just, you kind of heard the comments, and I'll send those to you in an email if that's the consensus. And then we'll, depending on the turnaround time, we'll reschedule. The only reason I'm saying this is we could continue the meeting to a date certain, which would be the next planning commission meeting. Do you know the date of that? September 1st. But in order to do that, we would, and that's why I was trying to ask you what you think your turnaround would be. And the only reason I say that is if we continue to a date certain, then maybe, you know what, I take it all back. We'll just redo the notice so everyone knows what's going on. There's a lot of folks who are interested in this project, but we can still shoot for September 1st, but we'll renotice just so everybody knows. Just trying to get a little expeditious here, but we don't need to do that. So.
be September 1st, and we'll send out a new notice, so you know. And just so you also know, it does go on to the city council, as the file said earlier, because this is the zone change is a city council action.
Yeah.
There'll be 2 more hearings.
You said it might be September 1st.
So
There's no chance of it being any earlier than that.
for everyone in the audience,
Not likely, since we're all needed to, it's gonna take them a while to make changes, and it takes time, so. If it was earlier, you get the notice, so everyone within 300 feet of the property gets a notice. But
Can you have them speak into the mic, please?
it might be September 1st, and we'll send out a notice, just so you know. And just so you also
Sorry,
know,
you guys couldn't hear me?
it's the zone changes hearings.
No.
We're obligated to, it's gonna take them a while to changes and it takes time. So if it was earlier, but it's a great system.
Okay. So are we in consensus then, as a commission? Shake your heads or raise hands.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll do that, and shall we move on to the next item?
Sure.
Okay. And then the next item we have is, find it here. Oh. Lost my agenda. Okay, we have a recommendation for the approval of council, okay, design review. Okay, so what do we got next?
So that was that item. We're not making a recommendation on the resolutions. We're going to ask the applicant to make some changes, bring it back potentially September 1st for hearings. At that time, we'll be asking for a recommendation to the council.
So that would conclude that item.
Okay, so we can move on to other non-public hearing items, which we have none. And then other business, which we have none. And that will leave us to planners report, communications.
Sure, thank you. Well, I just want to thank the commission on all the hard work on the Baumgartner project. I think it's made for a better project, your input, and that's going to be moving forward to the council next week. So I'm working on that report as we speak. Another project we're working on is the Dry Creek Rancheria subdivision and general plan amendment. That's south of town, not currently in town, but they're working on an application and some environmental review. And I would suspect that will be before the commission in the next few months, maybe by the end of the year. I also want to mention that we are still recruiting for an alternate planning commissioner. So if anyone knows anyone who's interested, if you could give them my contact information, that would be great. We didn't receive any applications during our last recruitment. And that is pretty much it. I just want to mention that, and we don't have to answer this now, but I just heard we're kind of the last city who's still meeting in public like this at this point with the COVID-19. So we may want to consider 100%.
I cannot hear you, Kevin.
And it's going to be up to you, Chair Shanahan, and we can discuss it later. I just wanted to bring that up, and I know it's difficult. You can't hear me?
We cannot hear you, Kevin.
Or whatever you say.
Oh my God. Did you hear? How about now?
Not very well.
I wonder why. Okay, Okay, so
Chair
Nobody heard me?
Shanahan, maybe you could repeat what he's saying since you're there on site, but
Maybe it was
Yeah, what he was
poor.
was saying is that
I don't know.
we're the last city that is still handling meetings this way. All of them have gone to 100% Zoom. So we wanted to just poll you guys to see if you would, we'll discuss it some more, but see if you would be able to do 100% Zoom, which you're doing anyway. It would be more for us and staff here.
I wonder why.
Yeah, Kevin will send out an email to everybody, so he can do that. And also as planning commissioner for the alternate position has not been filled yet. We have put out applications, but we haven't had any real responses. So if you know anybody who's interested, please reach out for us, because it would be really important to get that seat filled. And I think, and then Baumgartner, he was congratulating us for what we've done, to help that project and get the changes done that we got in there. And we did good. So with that said, do we have any direction from the commission?
Can you mention the planning commissioner recruitment? Can you guys hear me?
Barely, Kev.
Oh. Chair, do you mind mentioning?
We'll work on a housing element, sort of informational presentation to the next few months.
Okay, okay. In addition, we're going to work on the housing element.
Just a sort of
Introduction. A lot of you are new onto the commission, and that's a big item that we have to deal with. So we're going to have a little educational course, I believe. And Commissioner Ovich, you had a input?
No, I had a question. There's a water report. It's called the Water System Master Plan and Sewer System Master Plan. It's dated August 2010. Is that something that needs to be renewed? And if so, when is that scheduled for?
We have a water master plan that was done in 2017. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Kevin.
yeah, Kevin, you might want to remove your video. Your video will remove the background feed so it can allow more.
Can you hear me now?
That'll improve it.
Okay, good. Now you don't have to see me. We have a water master plan, Chair Holbert, that was done Commissioner Holbert, in 2017, and I'm happy to email that to you if you're interested. We also had a sewer analysis done by RMC in 2016, and those are the documents that we're using to just ensure that we have enough capacity to serve all these projects that are coming through, in addition to the analysis that we require them to complete.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I will send that to you.
Kevin, are those documents on the city's website? They are, right?
I have to check the Public Works website page. I think the water master plan is, but I'm not sure if the sewer one is. I don't know if I saw that, but if they're not, we'll get them up there.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. And now, one other thing too, I'd be interested to know what is the job to housing ratio for the past 5 years here, as I think it was Mr. Carter that alluded to that, or one of the other residents.
Well, I have to look it up, and that is part of this housing element exercise that we go through every 5 to 7 years. I mean, it's no secret we have more houses than we have jobs. I mean, it's operational. It's getting jobs,
how to achieve that. But when we do our presentation on the housing element in the next few months,
it's very difficult to achieve that.
Remember that.
But when we do our presentation on the housing element in the next few months, I'll try to remember that and bring that up as a talking point.
And can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Chair Shanahan?
We got you, Rafael.
Just one thing I was going to add to Commissioner Sanders' question about that. Just one thing to consider also is general plans are like 20-year documents. So that one, our general plan, I think, was written off the top of my head, like 10 years ago, something like that. And, you know, this housing crisis has been really, you know, coming to the forefront a lot in the last couple of years. So I would imagine with a new general plan, when we do that, policies like that might have to be adjusted a little bit.
Yeah, is that on the horizon? Do we have a schedule for that or no?
Oh, general plan?
Yes.
We don't have a comprehensive general plan update. It's a very expensive undertaking, but the state, one of the chapters in the general plan, or elements as they call it, is required to be updated. We don't have a choice on that one. And that's what we've been talking about in terms of, you know, the state assigning us a number of units that we need to accommodate. And so we're happy to put together a presentation just to get you aware of it, because it's coming up. We're a little bit ahead of the game right now, but we'll just get the basic understanding of it, and then we'll see as it progresses.
Thank you, Kevin.
In regards to your earlier comment, if we should go all virtual, I agree. We'll have less feedback and hopefully we'll have better reception if we go all virtual. I think the public comment and having multiple people in the same room adds an echo. It confuses the Wi-Fi you have in that building, which is causing a major issue with this meeting, making it very, very difficult to understand.
Okay, yeah, we'll all be getting that email. So please respond so we can figure this out. Okay, well, thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next meeting, September 1st.
Thank you, Michael.